All right, well, good morning again, everybody. We are officially through the first day of the Republican National Convention, and by my most important measures, things are going pretty well. And I say that because we've been able to maintain safety thanks to all of the partners who've stepped up to make sure that this is a safe convention. And Milwaukee is receiving very positive attention, not just across the United States, but literally around the world. And that's really exciting to me. I've talked to a number of people who have been here, who've walked around the city, gone out into some neighborhoods. Folks were particularly happy about walking along Lake Michigan, going to some of the parks, going up to Bradford Beach, and experiencing Milwaukee that way. I would imagine that County Executive Crowley is pretty proud about that. There were a couple of arrests. One occurred in the afternoon. An individual who was climbing a fence into a restricted area. By the way, this was his second arrest related to the RNC in 2 days for incidents around the convention. A second arrest was in the evening. An individual was blocking traffic and did not move when officers repeatedly asked her to do so. Traffic in the immediate downtown area, it has been slowed, particularly if you're trying to drive into the vehicle restricted area. As people become more accustomed to the restrictions, I suspect that traffic snarls are going to ease. The demonstrations that occurred yesterday, they proceeded without any major problems. The largest gathering on Monday went off very peacefully, and I'm happy to report that. That's the one that began over at Red Arrow Park, immediately to our north here. There was one arrest at the end of the gathering for disorderly conduct. Most importantly, no one was hurt, and there was no significant property damage that was reported as a result of these demonstrations. At the designated demonstration areas and parade route, overall, it was a calm day. It was a peaceful day. There were many registered groups and individuals that actually didn't even show up. It appears only one group actually completed the designated parade route that the city put together. That may have been because they instead chose to go to Red Arrow Park and join the larger group. We don't know that information. There's been a lot of discussion as of late about First Amendment rights as well as Second Amendment rights, and we honor those rights, and of course we'll protect those rights. I want to call attention now to another constitutional right. It's found in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, supported by the 12th Amendment, supported by the 24th Amendment, and supported by the 26th Amendment. And that's the right of Americans to vote, to let their voices be heard in our elections, and to vote. I want to express to everyone that voting is extremely important. Many people throughout our history, they've sacrificed a great deal in order for us to have that right, in order for us to be able to cast ballots and vote. In fact, there have been people who have lost their lives in sacrifice for all of us to have the opportunity for people in this country to vote. So it's our right and it's our duty to vote. So if you live in the United States and enjoy the honor and enjoy the privilege of being a citizen in what I believe is the greatest country on earth, then I'm speaking to you. You need to get up, you need to get out, and you need to vote. The election this November is important in setting the country's future direction. And so we must express our preferences. We must get out and vote. Now, we had some pretty big news yesterday at the convention, the formal nomination of the Republican presidential candidate and the naming of the vice presidential candidate on the Republican side, as well as his nomination. Now, there are a lot of questions and certainly a lot of concern. We now have a Republican candidate on the vice presidential side without any executive experience and a Republican presidential candidate whose executive experience we've already endured over the course of a term. President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, they've got my support, and their time in office has been good for Wisconsin, and it's been good for us here in the city of Milwaukee. Their work has boosted our infrastructure, created jobs, stabilized the post-COVID-19 economy, and the Biden-Harris administration's record has been good for Wisconsin. So when you listen to the words from the podium at Pfizer Forum, the podium at the Republican National Convention, be objective. What's the spin? What's real? Be informed and be a thoughtful voter. And with that, I'll take a couple questions. Yeah, I actually saw some and heard, some stories about that. And I was, asking questions myself about what happened yesterday. I was in Pfizer Forum sometime, and I heard these announcements myself that there was an announcement made to the convention goers that Mr. Trump would be making an appearance in the convention hall. And then it was delayed, and then it was delayed, and then it was delayed. And so folks not wanting to miss the appearance of their nominee, who, by the way, as all of us know, survived, and thankfully so, an assassination attempt on Saturday, they waited. And some of them, instead of going out, they went to Convention Fest, which, by the way, is staffed by a number of local businesses, local vendors. So folks were still able to go out and support local businesses on the ground in Milwaukee. But from what I understand, that was probably more of an anomaly, just because folks had to wait. They chose to wait, and I think that many people would have chosen to wait to see their presidential nominee come into the convention hall with the delays for Mr. Trump's appearance. I would expect so.
Mayor, regarding vehicle checkpoints, it seemed like that was especially problematic in the morning, waits an hour, 2, 3 hours at some. Was there an effort to course correct once the city recognized some of those log jams?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly going to be monitoring and watching what's happening in terms of ease of access at those checkpoints. And so we'll continue to work at that to make sure that people are able to get in and get out. And as I said, folks have to continue to get used to the traffic patterns during the convention here. It's a busy time in the city, and this is the first time that we've had a convention, had a program of this magnitude in the city. I've sort of likened this to taking the national security apparatus in Washington, D.C., lifting that up and transplanting it in the center of Milwaukee. So it's new here, but I think we'll get there, and we'll take those things into account. Yeah, so my understanding is that that event is legal and is able to proceed. We know that there's a lot of traffic over there. There's a lot of people that are attending that. I think there were a couple hundred folks at least who attended that. Law enforcement is keeping their eye out on that location. Yes. Again, Tim Scott was one of the vice presidential candidates, one of the people on the short list to be the vice president on Donald Trump's ticket. I think there's probably a reason why Tim Scott wasn't selected to be the vice president, even though Mr. Trump is supposedly trying to make inroads with African Americans. I don't buy that. I just don't. I go out in this city often. I talk to my constituents. I talk to my voters, particularly black men voters and black voters just in general. I ask them about the election. I ask them if they're registered. I ask them if they're going to vote. They say yes and yes. And whether you're a black man or a black woman, constantly folks have told me that there's only one person to vote for in this election, and that's President Joe Biden. So as much as I can appreciate, the efforts of Senator Scott, as I've said before, I don't think he's got the juice. I think Donald Trump recognized that he doesn't have the juice. And I think black voters in this community will also recognize that he doesn't have the juice. Because black people in this city, black people in this state, and I think black people across the United States know that President Joe Biden's agenda has been delivering, not just for the United States, but specifically for black people. I mean, when you think about President Barack Obama's landmark health care law, the Affordable Care Act. President Joe Biden's administration has helped to work to make sure that more people have access, and more people, including black people that may have diabetes, and seniors as well, have access to diabetes insulin that's capped at $35 per month. They know that President Joe Biden's administration has worked to make sure that young people, including black young people who are going to college. Myself, I'm a first-generation college student, right? And those young people have the chance to have that college debt eliminated so that they can buy a home quicker, start a family quicker, start a business quicker. That if they're choosing to go to a historically black college or university, that the President Biden's administration is supporting those universities with the most federal support ever. That happened under Joe Biden's leadership. Also, that the lowest amount of unemployment for black Americans in the history of the United States was recorded under President Joe Biden's leadership. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about how Joe Biden has delivered for the African American community. So I don't think that Senator Scott or anybody else has the juice to combat that. Sure. Well, I'm happy you asked because, like many cities across the country, we saw a spike in crime. Milwaukee did, and so many other places did, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The height of the COVID-19 pandemic that was botched in the response from the Trump administration. When President Biden came into office, he actually worked with cities, provided resources to cities such as the American Rescue Plan Act. And when that came, working with President Biden's administration and our policies around accountability and prevention for the last 2 years, all under President Biden's leadership, all under President Biden's administration, we've seen crime trend down year over year in Milwaukee. So I don't think there's really much to touch in terms of public safety when you compare the policies, when you compare the records of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the clear winner in terms of reducing violent crime in the United States in his presidency. Time for one or two more. Any other questions?
There's been a lot of talk about crime in the Biden industry. How did you feel about the message from RNC yesterday? Did you feel it was
Well, I mean, I saw Senator Johnson's speech. I don't think struck the tone that folks want to see. In terms of unifying the country, I believe what I saw in light of the assassination attempt, which, again, let me just reiterate, because I think this is important, and folks should hear this. That was terrible. It was remorseful. It should have never happened. This should have never happened. Nobody in this country, no matter if you're a kid going to a school, no matter if you're somebody going to the grocery store, it doesn't matter if you're a churchgoer. It doesn't matter if you're running for president of the United States. Nobody should endure that sort of violence. Political violence especially is atrocious, and everyone should condone it. I certainly condone it. And as I said, I've wished Mr. Trump a speedy recovery, and I'm happy that he's here. I'm happy that he's here safely. I'm happy that he was able to make an appearance over in the convention hall yesterday at Pfizer Forum. I will say this, though, in terms of healing the country and moving forward, I think that the direction that President Joe Biden laid out in his address to the nation from the Oval Office the other day, that's the tone that we need to move forward in the United States. President Joe Biden reminded us that at the end of the day, we're all Americans. At the end of the day, we're all part of one American family. Nobody is an enemy. Nobody's a vermin. We're friends. We're family. We're coworkers. And I implore people in this community and across the country to think about the founding of this country, to think about the founding of America. Everybody came together around the idea of America, right? And in a couple of years, we're going to celebrate 250 years of what that means as a nation, of all of us being one unified country, all rowing in the same direction to be a more perfect union. That's the direction that President Joe Biden laid out. That's the direction I think is the most appropriate for this country at this time. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.